Hi, this is Martin from Martin's Engine Services. Making a little video here about yet another stationary engine which has arrived. It's a Kohler K series. It's got a little bit of I've just solved a bit of a mystery as to exactly its capacity, which I'll come to in a minute. The trusty old Kohler K series is an exceptionally robust unit. It's an engine I particularly like. I've got a 241S 440cc unit on my wheel horse ride-on mower, and it's a tough old engine and they do run very nicely. As always with me, I happened to be fiddling around on Facebook over the weekend, and of course I saw this thing sitting there looking sad, needing a new home, and of course it now ends up with me. I'm a sucker for sad looking things and I like to rescue them. It was evidently a running engine that's actually removed by a guy who restores and rebuilds sort of 2 or 3 year old machines or 5-year-old machines, and he took this off at customer's request and fitted a later Briggs and Stratton. He said the only main issue he had with the engine was it didn't really want to rev up and it needed a few other sort of bits of servicing and bits and pieces, so they decided for an upgrade. He did actually have the cylinder head off, and I believe he's done the valves as well. And compression feels good, as you can see, there's new bolts and bits and pieces. So I don't think there'll be any major problems with it. It's actually got a nice new starter motor on it, which is a bonus, because these are quite a pricey item on their own if you need to buy one. And it will interchange fully with my smaller version of this engine. All the ignition parts came with it, and I've got a lot of other parts scattered around I've taken off and started cleaning up. And cleaned all the ignition bits up, everything works, got a very good spark. And quite fortunately, this engine is actually fitted with points, which I prefer over the solid state ignition system which was fitted to my 241S engine, which works absolutely fine until the little electronic box decided to severely let the smoke out one day. And as I said in the previous video on the tractor, it's a very expensive item, and I subsequently converted the other engine to points. It's actually had a replacement fuel pump here, and it's one of these sort of aftermarket plastic ones, something I'm not a great lover of, but they work okay. Not too good on my version of the engine, where the exhaust actually runs down across the fuel pump and out the front. The fuel pump does take an incredible amount of heat. But on this application, of course, the exhaust went straight out, so no real problem. It was actually fitted to a skid steer or small bobcat or something similar. Can't remember exactly what it was now, he said. But the clue is in the fact that the fan housing is actually coloured white, along with several of the other components I have with the engine. Now, where the confusion comes in, of course, it says on here K321QS. The K341 is actually the 16 horsepower 585cc unit, and the serial number there is just about read the 92, indicates 1978. Now, while I was cleaning up the engine, I did discover on the front of the block it says K321, which indicates a 14 horsepower unit, which is, I did actually write it down, 512cc. Externally, all the engines are fairly similar. The 8, 10, 12 horsepower does have a slightly different layout on the block, oil fillers over there. And this one's around this side. There's some variations in some of the tinware and bits and pieces, but they're pretty all interchangeable, and the base mounting positions are standard. So this would bolt on in place of my 10 horsepower if I needed it. Crank sizes are all the same. There's all the bolt holes here for the different setups of the clutch assemblies and fan housings and bits and pieces. I'm not too worried that it's not actually 16 horsepower. I really bought it because it was quite a cheap engine, had a lot of parts on, and I am quite a lover of the K series unit. It's a lovely old smooth running engine, exceptionally reliable, very well built. The piston and connecting rod and likewise the cylinder head are aluminium. The rest of the engine's all cast iron. It does actually feature ball bearings on all shafts, including the balancer shaft, which does make it run very smooth. At full throttle against the governor, these actually run at 3,600 revs, so they are going some, but they do run very nicely at high RPM, and they have a lovely lazy idle, which I always think is very sweet. This one's actually fitted with a Walbro carburetor, which was fitted on the larger engines, and the previous one had a Kohler carburetor. Again, they're pretty much interchangeable if you wanted to. Various jet sizes. It's a fairly simple unit, usual sort of setup, jet through the middle, couple of adjustments, nothing too horrible about them. Give them a clean up and they usually work fine. I suspect that's the issue with this engine. It's probably got a block main jet or similar. As he said, it just idled well, but it basically just would not accelerate. I've got various other bits and pieces off, just a general clean up and an inspection, but should hopefully have it up and running in a few days. I've got some of the other bits and pieces from the skid steer or bobcat unit, like the air filter and some of the fan housing down the bottom, obviously not the bit off the lawnmower, and various other bits and pieces he threw in with it. They're never useful, put them in the shed. You know what I'm like, I'll make something out of it. So I don't 100% know exactly what year this unit is. I could possibly date it by when they changed from points to solid state ignition, but that's not a guarantee because again it was options and variations, etc, etc. So there's no other engine numbers actually stamped on the unit, so I can't really definitively work it out, but just so it's not a major problem. I'll keep it as it is. It's just a nice engine to have, and again it's another one to the collection. It has got a built-in alternator charging system, and it did actually come with the new charging controller, which I just put off for safety, but that assembly is all built in behind the flywheel. It's basically got a alternator built into the back of the flywheel bolt of the engine, which generates the necessary electricity, and then the control unit there takes it down to the required voltage. You see it's got quite a large cooling fan built on there, and it does produce an awful lot of air when these are running, and they don't seem to have any issues running on hot days, and certainly had none on mine. And considering how poorly my engine was all those years it ran, and no issues whatsoever. So they're a great old engine. I rather like them. They're kind of legendary for their reliability, and they are a very heavy unit. I mean, it's not a particularly large engine, but you ain't picking it up, trust me. Still, it's another one to the collection, and I'm sure there'll be more to come because I just can't resist buying them. Still, I suppose it keeps me occupied, gives me something to tinker around with. And yes, of course, there's the list of G1 still sitting there. We'll get round to it, but I'm actually in the process now of actually converting this to electric start. I just don't like the idea of cranking this engine by hand. It's been 1000cc, it's a little bit scary. So what I'm actually doing at the moment, I've got a flywheel from a Ford ST170, dual mass flywheel. I'll show you that I've actually cut that up, and I've just using the actual internal part of the flywheel. I've actually machined it off. I'm just using this part of the flywheel with the ring gear on it. So basically it's a nice sort of lightweight skinny flywheel. I have got to remove this boss in the middle and bore this out to the size of the shaft on the engine. The bolt hole spacings on this are exactly the same as the later Ford Duratec engine, to which I've actually cut the end of a scrap crankshaft off. It's here sitting in the lathe now. Lights on the subject. And here is the end of the crank here in the lathe, ready to be bored out. This was actually the balance web, which I've machined down, so it's nice and round. And now I've got to bore this out to the sort of 1.25 inch. That was the original main. And that will give me a nice bolt-on hub, which I can fit onto the Lister G1 engine with a Woodruff key slot in there. And that will house the flywheel nicely. And that will solve my problem. I'll put any Ford starter motor to it, and then we have instant start. It's quite a bit of a mission getting this apart actually, this flywheel, because the amount of components inside one is quite intriguing. You've got the spring mechanism that obviously regulates the damping effect, and various rivets and the bits and pieces in there. It's quite a challenge to get it apart, and I tell you, it's quite a lightweight unit now. So that's another little something I'm getting round to. But of course I never get round to it because I keep buying other engines and starting on those. But there you go, it keeps me happy. Anyhow, hope you've enjoyed this little video on my Kohler K series, and a little update on a few other things I'm working on. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment or ask a question. Bye for now.